Previous lesson, we used the question to be able to revise on matter. So from that question, we were able to classify materials under the three states of matter, which are solids, liquids, and gases. And we're able to explain that some states of matter some materials can exist in all the three states of matter. So for example, when you take water, it can exist as liquids. It can also exist as solids when it is frozen, and then it can also exist as gas when it is heated. In today's lesson, we are looking at the elements and the periodic table. So by the end of the lesson, we expect that as a student, you'll be able to define elements, and then you'll be able to identify the first 20 elements of the periodic table. So now, what is an element? So we are looking at an element. Now, when we talk about an element, we are simply looking at a substance. So an element is a substance, first and foremost. It is a substance. Now, substances are within all forms of matter. Now, when we were defining the particles that make up matter, we mentioned element. We said that it's the smallest particle of an element, which is the atom. It is the smallest particle of an element. So now, when we talk about an element, we are looking at a substance that is made up of atoms of the same kind. It's made up of atoms of the same kind. And then it cannot be broken down into simpler substances by any chemical means. It cannot be broken down into simpler substances by any chemical means. This is what we mean. Now, when we take an example like, let's say, oxygen. So oxygen, which is common, the air we breathe, we realize that oxygen is an element. So you can't break oxygen down and probably get oxy and then get gin. No, it is one substance. So it's made up of atoms of the same kind. So when you take oxygen, it's made up of oxygen atoms. And you can't break it down into simpler substances by any chemical means. Now, let's look at the elements in the periodic table. At our level, we'll study the first 20 elements in the periodic table, but we have as many as 118 elements, 118, that have been discovered so far in the world. So when we look at the first 20 elements, you must know their position. So you must know that hydrogen is 1 and know that calcium is element number 20. So in order to be able to know it, you must go through it. Now we have hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. Then we have sodium as number 11, magnesium, aluminium, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, argon, potassium, calcium. So try and go through it like this. Continue repeatedly, write them down, and recite them repeatedly. Now, when you look at the elements, they come along with their symbols. So for example, hydrogen has, when we look at hydrogen, it has the symbol H. Helium is He. Now, there are certain special elements that are given symbol based on their Latin name. So for example, sodium has the symbol N and A. Now, Na stands for natrium, which is a Latin name. So the Latin name for sodium is natrium. Now, when we look at potassium, potassium has the symbol K. K stands for calcium, because we also have phosphorus, which has the element symbol P. So study the first 20 elements. Go through it over and over again so that you're able to know the positions. In today's lesson, we have studied elements, and we said that an element is a substance made up of atoms of the same kind that cannot be broken down into simpler substances by any chemical means. In our next lesson, we'll be moving on to look at the structure of an atom. See you in the next lesson.